podcast. I'm Kevin. With me is Steve. It is August 14th, Monday. The Hounds just won on the weekend after a late start. Well, not a late start, let's be honest. And things are growing great. We're top of the East, 2 wins on the bounce, and we're going to break it down for you.
Let's go!
Steve doing the let's go justice. I was very happy and welcome to move past it, but Steve's like, no, we should do it. We should do it. So
I feel like it's a little homage. That's a generous word to Mike when he's not here.
We could have got away with not doing it if we lost, but there's more reason to do it.
Oh yeah,
after
Well, and I mean, since what was it? You didn't have power last week, and
yeah.
Josh was out and nobody else was on. Or Mike was, I don't remember what the situation was, but
who could say?
It would have been one person, I think.
Yeah.
So a non-one person podcast. So, it's been a little while. Gotta give the fans what they expect.
Yeah, of course. And already speaking of giving the fans what they expect, I don't know what that is, but
hey, you're welcome, Mark. It was great to meet you guys in the parking lot. So yeah, no. I was throwing out my last beer that I was drinking at the tailgate, and overheard this group talking about how they were going to manage 3 beverages between 4 people, and I was like, "Do you need another one? I've got another one in the car. I'll grab it." Walk back to them. I was like, they said they listened to the podcast. I was like, "Oh yeah." So okay, so that's me. Like. Glad you listen to the podcast. Like, if you didn't, I was going to tell you to listen to the podcast. That's what I do.
Cool. Well, I guess it'd be before maybe getting into the tailgate stuff. Yeah, just quickly catching up. I mean, Steve, you kind of alluded to it. Power went out last week for me. Couldn't be around to record. We ended up getting a tornado through in the area, and it ended up being 3 or 4 miles away from our apartment.
Okay.
Everything's fine. We're good.
Sure.
Everyone I know, I mean, I know a couple people who are dealing with home damage and everything like that. But it just goes, I mean, a couple years ago, we reached out to our apartment complex. We're like, hey, what do we do if there's a tornado? What's the plan? And they're like, we don't get tornadoes here. and it's and there was no plan. So, it's, I don't know, man.
In retrospect, right? You feel 3-4 miles away. It's oh yeah, no, that was never going to hit us at that point. But in the moment, it's there's a tornado that is 3 miles away. If that comes this way, what does that mean? I mean,
and we have no plan. So
right. I mean, when I was back in grad school in central Indiana, I mean, flat as can be. And if there was tornado weather, it was you have to pay attention. I mean, not that it happened as much there as it does farther west in the plains, but definitely something to think about and freaking scary.
Yeah, for sure. Steve, how's it been going for you these past couple of weeks?
Pretty good. Saturday was a great morning. So Venture Outdoors, it's the company that does the kayak rentals on Allegheny and at North Park. They sell their used kayaks. And so I got a tandem kayak, $380. And
I love kayaking.
At first, I was like, oh, $380 for a tandem kayak, that's a decent deal. And then a friend of mine was like, oh no, it actually comes with a paddle and life vest. I was like, oh, great. Even better, less expenses, right? Show up to get it, and it comes with 2 paddles and 2 life vests. The life vests are brand new. They've still got the tags on them. So I get home, and so I'm trying to figure out okay, these seem just pretty entry-level life vests, blah, blah, blah. I grabbed them to take a look and try to do some research and look at the tag and realize, oh, there's still a price tag on it. $90 life vests each, right? So 2 $90 life vests in that $380, right? I'm thrilled. It's great. I can't wait to take it out. I'm I'm hoping maybe if I can, don't tell my boss, get out there on Thursday. I might take it out to Raccoon Creek, and then got some plans with a friend on Saturday for Brady's Run. To take it out. So I think the absurd thing about getting into kayaking with my own is it also cost me $90 to buy Rory his life vest so that he can go kayaking with me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's half the size of mine. He's a dog. Why is it so expensive? But
you're gonna pay it.
yep, I'm gonna pay it so that he goes with me. I really think he's not gonna like it. He is a dog that does not like water much. He's 3 years old this month. He's a great dog. But about a week ago, he had an accident in the middle of the night because he couldn't make it through the night because he wouldn't go out in the backyard and go to the bathroom because it was raining so hard and he didn't want to get wet.
Right. Yeah.
And so I'm going to try to take this dog kayaking and see how he does.
I don't know how it's going to work, Steve, but
he's in the boat until he jumps out.
Yeah. Hopefully it works well.
Other than last week, no power, how have you been since?
Oh, good. Yeah. I mean, it's been pretty standard. Just kind of catching up on some pre-honeymoon trip things. Riley and I are going to Italy in about a month. So
it's about time you do that.
I know. Yeah. 3 years late, 3 years delayed honeymoon. We got married during, July 2020 and COVID. We wanted to make sure we can go at a time where we weren't going to be like too concerned with like, COVID restrictions or getting stuck in a country or something. But and now it's finally that time. So we're just gearing up for it. But it's pretty quiet and up until that point, and then it'll be fun. But yeah, doing good.
Great.
But let's
we've got soccer to talk about.
Let's jump. Yeah, we have a lot. I mean, I was going through. I know Mike created a draft for us to kind of read off of an agenda. I was going through and making some like notes of my own, and I was like, all right, a couple lines of notes here or whatever, and I just kept going. So yeah, there's a lot of talking points to get through. I don't know how long I want to talk about the Tampa game. Last week, 10 days ago or something. But we did play Tampa. Big game at home. Beat them 1-0. At the time, going into it, right, we had the 4-2 win the week before that felt like a turning point after a little bit of a slip over 2 games. So the Tampa game was big. We come in, we win 1-0. I don't remember a ton of this game, Steve. So I don't know if you remember.
So I was there for that game. Obviously the Rowdies are a really good team, despite the fact that they've had transition with their coach.
Yeah.
But it's
6 points back from us still with 2 games in hand. So yeah,
right. I mean, going into that game, I was looking at that game, and one of the guys from RLBR Sports reached out to Josh and asked if somebody wanted to do some stuff. So I wrote like a second half of their article for them that they published. And I think we've got OC this weekend, this Wednesday. And I think Justin is joining their podcast if he hasn't already. I don't know what the timing was on that because they jumped on. Oh yeah, we'd love to have somebody too. So I spent a lot of time really thinking about this game, and was like, ooh man, like the Rowdies are a good team. But as I went through like what to expect from the Hounds, right? Like giving other teams a view of what they should be watching for with the Hounds. I had a lot of confidence in what the Hounds could do, but knew that the Rowdies were just as capable. And I don't despite a 1-0 scoreline, I don't think it was a close game at all. The Hounds got the goal. They had a few other chances. Tampa, sure, they were good when they had the ball in the defensive third at times. They were good pushing through midfield, but when they got into the attacking third, I felt like every single thing that they did, the Hounds just snuffed out and shut them down the entire night. And I don't like seeing a 1-0 scoreline going into the 70th, 80th minute of a game. But that was one of those games where I'm like, it's going to take something really special. And we've rarely seen really special things from the opponents this season.
And that's not
And like full confidence with the
yeah.
Hounds to hold a 1-0 lead. Not unlike past seasons where we can talk about this being Lilley ball, where you win 1-0, but like you're hanging on in the past for the last 10 minutes of the game. I didn't feel like that at all in the Tampa game. And I just thought it was, an excellent performance by the Hounds.
And it wasn't a given going into that game that we were going to be defensively strong, right? I mean, before that game, in the 3 previous games, we had let up a total of 8 goals.
Yeah.
And so in 2 of those games were at home, at least 2. So yeah, I mean, it was defensively going into this, it was not a foregone conclusion that we were going to be strong defensively against one of the best teams in the East. And yeah, by all accounts, we put in a really good performance. I do remember really liking Dikwa and Showing Me both starting the game up top.
Yeah,
I can't remember. I'm putting my foot in my mouth right now, but like I can't remember how many times that's happened this season. I remember early on Showing Me coming in as a sub and them linking up pretty well. And then Dikwa gets injured and Showing Me has to come in and step in. But it's in recent memory, I think, yeah. I mean, but I thought they played well. I thought they linked up well. And I think they have a pretty nice connection.
Yeah. Well, I mean, now you got me wondering how many times have they actually even started together? I want to say they've started together before, but without going back and looking game by game, I can't be sure because I feel like Showumi started to get some more time when Kiza wasn't doing as well. But then Dikwa got his injury. I mean, even and so looking back, like when were they and how many times has Lilley chosen 2 forwards in a match? I feel like that's a more recent evolution without looking back. I know it's happened throughout the season, but I feel like the predominance was a single striker, and then putting more midfielders in after the beginning of the season. So I mean, no, I mean, I think it was great. I like what I've seen from Shumi the past few games. Even though he didn't get another goal at Tampa, I think his presence on the field was really helpful. But I also think one of the things that I think is really important in that game is, unlike the first Charleston game at Highmark, where the Hounds eventually got a second goal, but Charleston was putting pressure on the Hounds. And we had to do a huge defensive performance in that Charleston game to keep the ball out of the net. Whereas I don't feel like the Rowdies game, even though it was another early game or early goal game, that there was ever much of a chance for Tampa to really put the keeper, put the center backs in trouble right on the goal line.
Yeah. Yeah. While you were talking there, I went back and looked at like recent starting lineups going back like a month or so. And Lilley has deployed a 2-striker system a little bit, but it's never been with Showing Me and Dikwa. It's been a combination of Keza and Aubergeon Jr. and all of that. So, yeah, I mean, and I think Showing Me actually is the one who sets up Dikwa for Dikwa's goal in that game too.
Oh, it was. I mean, because I talked to him afterwards, and I mean, the pass that he put through. I mean, control. It started with a Ordonez. I mean, just pinpoint pass to Tola, and Tola controls it, finds a small gap. I mean, very little room to get that ball through right to the feet of Dikwa, who just buried it in the back of the net. One of probably the top few team goals, I think, of the season.
Yeah. No, I think
it was beautiful all
around.
In
a season where I have been pretty critical about our offensive attacking options, kind of everything relying on Dikwa, I'm getting a little more confidence now where, okay, Showing Me still not putting up numbers, but he's not getting worse. And I think Showing Me is clearly improving over the course of the season. Kiza comes in and puts in a pretty good performance in this next game that we'll talk about here. And I don't know, I've liked what I've seen a lot from Aubergeon coming in and playing pretty well. So while things, I don't know. I think we're moving in the right direction for
Yeah.
headlining options.
And I think the other thing is, so I mean, if we look back at the Memphis game in the first half, um, talking to Coach after the game, he was pretty frustrated with the center forwards, and there were two center forwards. It was, I think it was Obregon and was it Obregon and Shwomi? Yeah, it was Obregon and Shwomi, for not moving around. And I think in the Tampa game and in this past weekend's game, you saw a lot more movement when they didn't have the ball at their feet to pull defenders wide, and that's why the opportunities in those two games existed. So I mean, knowing Bob, if he's expressing something after the game, he's also expressing that pretty strongly to the players,
Yeah.
and it got through, and they started making those movements, and he made some changes in each of those games, and with selection, and tried some different things, and 2 games in a row.
So unless you have anything else to talk about in the Tampa game, let's move on and talk about this past weekend. Hartford kicks us off a little bit late.
A little bit late.
A little bit late. How ended up? I mean, what it ends up being? What starts at around 10, right?
I think the official kickoff time that the team published was officially 10:06.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
mean, a late game.
That's late.
I tried to get down to the tailgate before the rain got a little bit, or was expected to get a little bit worse. So I got down there a little early, walked into the stadium right at 7, walked right up to the media booth, and we're just sitting there watching nothing, right?
What do you do for 3 hours?
I went home at 8:00.
Oh, okay.
I can't, because I was I knew I wasn't going to stay for post game. I was also pretty tired that night. I had hiked 7 miles on Friday, and I was still feeling it. And at that point, I knew that kickoff was at the earliest 9:10, and I was that's putting me not getting home till a quarter to midnight. I don't think I want to do that.
Yeah.
So came home. I mean, in our Slack, if you saw, Liz was joking about leaving early, and I was I was right behind her. Saw her turn into up their road to go up the hill, right? On 65. That's how close I was. I was not far behind, and I don't regret it, because you know what? I was able to fall asleep before midnight that night.
Yeah. No, I mean, gotta, no judgment. You gotta do what you gotta do, people. Yeah. Got respect for the people who stayed in the stadium, though. I mean, there was a decent chunk.
I feel you couldn't see the grandstand, but the few shots that you could see some of the grandstand, it seemed like there was a pretty good density, at least low in the grandstand.
Well, the Hounds have
a full Steel Army section, but a compact and noticeable Steel Army sections. So,
well, the Hounds have something cooking this year, so that's why people want to stay around and catch the.
Well, and I think, I mean, the thing that's even more impressive to me is knowing that there was going to be some inclement weather, knowing that there was a possibility of a delay. The people that walked through the gate, maybe they left. A lot of them did, but there were still 4,600 and something people that walked through the gate that night. That would have never happened, I think, in seasons past, that 4,600 people are going to say, no, I'm going to try to go to this game, even with really crappy weather.
Yeah. Let me get out some milestones along the way. Mike made some notes here. A couple I knew off the top of my head. Couple I
didn't. Kev, I just want to say, you could have totally taken credit for that, and you gave Mike the credit.
I'm an honest guy. What can I say? So Lilley gets his 100th win for the Hounds. I mean, big milestone. Mm-hmm. At some point, now's not the time, but it's reflection on what Lilley has done for the club and the success that he's had here is pretty immense. Danny Rivera gets his 100th match for the Hounds. Mm-hmm. Dequo with his goal on the night is 2 goals back in the Golden Boot race. There's a couple more points here. Steve, maybe you can interpret them. I don't fully understand them. So Waite is 2 shutouts back on the most shutouts in the league. So I don't know. Maybe he's 2 more shutouts and he's tied with the league leader.
Yeah, I think that's what that's what Mike was trying to say.
Yeah. And the
And the
last
team
one,
leads with 12 because Luis Zamudio, I think, he had 3 in his 4 games, right? And so, which leads me to believe Waite has 9, and whoever has 11, whoever has the lead has 11.
Yeah. And then the last kind of milestone here is Kenny is 2 assists back on the most assists in the league. So once again, I kind of interpret that as 2 more assists for Kenny, and he's tied for most assists this season, which is, to me, kind of came out of nowhere. And we can get into talk about Kenny's performance here in a second. I want to get to this comment. I'm comment happy. So there was a comment from Kevin on YouTube. Kevin, admittedly, you kind of freaked me out for a second because I was like, wait a minute, like that's not me. So, but Kevin with a comment on YouTube said we had a good crowd for the hour. I was surprised. Our family stuck it out. So yeah, I mean, on the stream and on the highlights, I was talking to Steve before too. Yeah, I mean, I caught a bit of it of the beginning of the game. Didn't stay up for the entirety of it, but I mean, it came through on the stream. There was a good support there, given the context of the evening, and the people who stuck it out ends up getting to appreciate a 2-0 Hounds win. So, Steve, let's get into the details of the game.
It was a fun game.
Yeah. So just generally the overarching highlights. Dequa gets a goal in the 16th minute. Beautiful, just rifle bottom left corner, really well struck. And then Aubergeon Jr. gets a 42nd minute penalty, a penalty that he wins, I believe, at the edge of the box, and then scores a penalty against his former club. Decides not to celebrate, which I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, they were talking. He's not celebrating. I mean, he celebrated.
Yeah, I know.
Like he didn't like go up to them and like run up to the Steel Army and like make a big deal about it. But he went back to the crowd of players and like, I mean, he was not shy about like getting happy about it.
Yeah.
I was surprised he stepped up to take the penalty kick.
Me too. I mean, although I don't know off the top of my head who else takes it. I mean, but yeah,
I mean, Dequa.
You would think. I guess I don't really. I don't remember a ton of penalties like this team gets, and so.
Well,
in my head, I think Kenny, but Kenny's wasn't on the field.
He was in the 18, but not in the starting 11, right? And so so I'm expecting Kenny to take them. Then I'm expecting Dequa to take them.
Yeah.
Last year, Russ and Alex took some penalty kicks.
Yeah.
I'm okay with it because he buried it convincingly, right?
Well, he buried it. I don't know. In my opinion, I don't think it was the greatest taken pen. I think if the keeper guesses the right way, I think it's at a pretty savable height.
I mean, sure, but it wasn't a soft rolling ball. I mean, he picked his side. He went with where he went, and he just rifled the ball into the back of the net. Could his placement have been a little farther, closer to the post? Sure, but it wasn't. He didn't look unconfident, and I think that's a big part of taking a penalty. You know, if the keeper guesses the right way, and especially at the USL level, like, sure. You guess the right way and you're a decent keeper, you're going to save some penalty kicks.
Yeah.
But I was pleased with it. And I feel like it was because he won the foul that's why there wasn't any sort of like discussion.
Right.
It seemed like, I mean, I didn't see anything on the feed, but it seemed like it was just like he stepped right up. Yeah. I'm sure him and Dequa talked about it, and Dequa was like, "Hey, you want it, you take it," kind of thing.
We got a lesson recently in penalties from the Australia France Women's World Cup semifinal.
Is that the one that went to like 20 or something like that penalty kick?
There was a lot. Yeah. As a side comment, as a digression, the Women's World Cup, heating up but in the semifinals now. Mm-hmm. That's a good competition.
Well, so what was it? The last winner to get eliminated was Japan, which means the teams left are all non-winners. So somebody new will win the Women's World Cup.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
No, so that penalty shootout, though, I saw is the most penalties taken in any World Cup, men's or women's ever, which is
Nice.
just like that's kind of cool to
Yeah.
have seen that little bit of history. Back to the Hounds match, back to the other goal. Um, I mean, Dequa finished really well, but that goal doesn't happen if it's not for Danny Rivera. I mean, the press from a wing back position to press the center back, win the ball, and then perfectly weighted pass right to Dequa's feet was just absolutely phenomenal. And um, I guess like for a guy that's been around for 5 years, um, to see him having that type of impact uh, a few games in a row where he's changing the game. Um, just fantastic to see. And I mean, I love Danny. He's a great guy. He's probably one of the most outgoing guys on the team that just like uh, just I mean, he loves interacting with anybody that he can interact with, and he just has a blast with it. But then to see him also just be excellent on the field, not just a great personality off the field, is it makes me like the guy even more.
Yeah, no, I'm happy he gets that moment because I think he is when he gets a run in the team for a while. He I don't know. I think he's a player who likes to find his groove, and when he does, I think
Mm-hmm.
he can have a really big impact. I know he's been kind of hit with injuries over
Mm-hmm.
the past couple seasons, and that's kind of made everything a little stop and start. But I mean, one of the notes that I wrote down was we look particularly threatening along Rivera's side, so along
Mm-hmm.
our left. What in the end, Hartford end up getting 6 yellow cards, and they're all down Rivera, Mertz, and Aubergeon
Mm-hmm.
Jr.'s side. And I mean, it's yeah. I mean, so that alone, I mean, I think they all kind of linked up really well. I thought Mertz showed a little bit more control on the ball. I think Mertz has gone hiding a little bit over the course of the season, but from the bit that I saw at the beginning and from the highlights that I caught after, it did seem like he had a little bit more control over the midfield. I mean, he takes the
Mm-hmm.
responsibility with the captaincy, and they look particularly threatening down that left side, pulling all those yellow cards.
Yeah. No, and I think for me with Mertz, I think the best thing about it was he put in a good shift while he was on the field. And sure, he wasn't at peak Robbie Mertz. Um, I just think like this was one of his better halves that we've seen out of him because he was starting to do some of those things that we saw before he went to Atlanta, where he was
Yeah.
just that menacing little midfielder that pops up out of nowhere, and all of a sudden he's on a guy that's 6 inches taller than him and making that guy turn over the ball. Um, like I
Let's
just
Yeah. I
yeah.
was gonna say let's stay on the Mertz thing. This is a good comment. So Mark put in, no way on Mertz. He's been amazing on the season. I think the thing with me on Mertz is for a player like him, I don't see him. Okay, and then following up with a comment, Mark also puts up, Mertz has been kind of dealing with some injury and has been
Mhm.
banged up this year. And yeah, no, fair point. I think my thing with Mertz is there are some players that their influence can be had on the team and it doesn't show up
Mhm.
on like the stat sheet.
Like a Danny Griffin.
Yeah, exactly. Although I will say it's funny enough. I think at the beginning when he came in, that did not seem that. When he came in at this season, and the first 3 games he gets like 2 big goals and is threatening. I keep him at a number 10, and he's great. And then he drifts further and further back on the field and ends up being his kind of normal kind of destroyer midfielder. But yeah, I agree with you. Generally speaking, Danny Griffin is his influence is not popping up on the stat sheet. For me, Mertz kind of I don't know the player that I have of like the player profile that I have of him in my head um, is a player that needs to contribute on the stat sheet. He's good enough to be
Mhm.
getting at least 5 goals a season, and he's good enough to be getting maybe 7 to 8 assists a season.
Yeah.
And right now he's not anywhere near that. And he's so I think that's the only reason. That's my only critique against Mertz. I think generally he has an impact on games, but I just want to see more of an impact, like on in the goal aspect of things. I don't know what you think about that, Steve. But
Well, so now I'm wondering, like, what has Robbie Mertz done this year? 1 goal. I'm looking over here. Where's the assists?
If I was a better host, I'd be good at killing time on the air while you look this up, but I'm not.
Robbie Mertz has contributed to 1 goal that he scored.
Yeah.
If I'm looking at this right, because I don't see him on the assists.
And I remember the goal. It was a great goal.
Oh, it was a great goal. It was.
Yeah. So,
but it was also really early in the season, and he hasn't. That's not to say that he hasn't made an impact offensively or defensively, but he hasn't been getting the stats that you would hope from a high energy, high pressing. I mean, a lot of times he's kind of playing as a more forward or attacking midfielder, maybe a little wide, but he's not the box to box midfielder. He's in the box a lot more.
Yeah.
You'd expect to see him doing more on the stat sheet.
Yeah.
I don't think it's his best season. As Mark said, he has been dinged up. You ask me, I think he whether I don't know whose decision it was. I think he came in a little earlier than he should have after that injury. And I also just want to say, like, I mean, here's a guy that is at a stage of life where, right? Like, I remember when I was that age, mid-20s, right? Like, major life change, getting married this summer, like trying to balance all of those things is a really different thing. And how do you prioritize those things? I don't know that I'd be good at that at nearly 40, much less in my early 20s when I hadn't figured out life like I have now, right? Like, so like, I just think it's like he's got a lot to kind of figure out, and how do I do well at my job? How do I do well with my family, with my new relationship with my wife, with all of these other things that are going on in my life? Okay, that's fine. Like, give him some time. Like,
and by the way,
this continues 3 years down the road, and Robbie Mertz is playing like this as a Hound 3 years down the road, then I'm going to be disappointed. If he's figuring things out, whatever. Like, and maybe like that's because we have some depth this year, where it's like if Robbie Mertz is not in the lineup,
that's true.
I'm not heartbroken because I'm looking at the lineup and I'm like, I mean, I said to I don't remember who I was talking to in the parking lot, but I said, I think the worst change in there, and I'm not, this isn't a criticism of him, but I think the worst drop off there is Kenny for Robbie when you look at the 4 changes from the week before.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a really good point on the depth argument, where this is a season where Mertz doesn't need to shine. And so if he's not shining, then it can go, it's more palatable.
Well,
when you have
because
Kenny
he's doing
Tetsu.
those, he's able to do some of those things that are not showing up on the stat sheet. He's still interrupting players. He's still pressing players, creating turnovers, even if he's not doing things offensively.
I love a midfield of what was it? Ibarra, Griffin, and Mertz. I think it's high energy. It's a lot of pressing, and it gives Show-Me and Dequa a platform to go and do the things that they need to do. But
and I think what I really like about that, and this is not a negative on other potential options, but when you've got Langston Blackstock as a wingback in there, you're really adding a lot of offensive capacity from the wingback position, right? And it's just, you're at that point you're making the choice between Langston, Rovi, and Luke Biasi, and you have to pick 2. And in this game, I mean, Langston and Rovi were on opposite sides of where you might expect to see them to start. But I think it's just you're putting in a guy that is going to be really forward thinking and adding to that attacking core. And so you've got 3 guys that could be playing as forwards and 3 really aggressive, not give anything up, high pressing midfielders in that. And you've still got Danny Rivera on the field that is one of the best defensive players in a non-center back role that the Hounds have probably had in a long, long time.
Griffin is the best number 10 that's a defensive midfielder.
Well, I think I've said this before, right? Like the problem for Danny Griffin is playing as that 6 is not his best position. And there are other defensive midfielders on the team, but he's still the best midfielder
Yeah.
overall, in the sense that, like, he's better as a 10, he's better as an 8, and he's still our best number 6.
Yeah. I mean, I don't 100% agree, but let's move on. But I will say maybe.
No, so I'll say this. I think that's what Bob Lilley thinks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I think obviously Lilley puts a ton of trust into Griffin. Griffin, what ends last season with the most minutes played, like a ridiculous. He played every minute of like the regular season or something. I mean, yeah, the guy doesn't get hurt.
It hasn't been until this season that he hasn't played in, or he hasn't like been the guy that's playing 90 minutes pretty much every single game as a Hound. I mean, it was one game where he didn't have much minutes, and that was like the first time it's like, wait, where's Danny Griffin?
Yeah,
because
that was
the
a talking
only
point
time he hasn't been on the field is when he was with what was the heck of the name of that team in
I forget, man.
Alabama? Huntsville, that's what it is. Yeah.
So I guess, I mean, to kind of maybe wrap up this Hartford game. I mean, I didn't think Hartford looked particularly good, but this was more in the context of I was impressed at how good we looked given the late start, given the delay. I don't know. I think it can't really be understated how much that can affect a team. It's just on a very basic level, just like it sounds trivial, but like basic things like warm-ups, let alone all the kind of mental parts of getting ready for a game and having to wait and then getting warmed up again and having to wait. And so I guess I can kind of especially being the away team in that scenario.
Right.
It's just another layer of difficulty. You're already coming into high mark where we've only lost one game all season. Hounds are top of the East, and you get this delay. So I don't know. Maybe that's the reason why I wasn't that impressed with Hartford. But Hartford weren't that impressive. But
and the fact that Hartford is not impressive this season overall.
Yeah.
But I think, like, for me, the more impressive thing is for the Hounds to go out at that point and still execute their game plan, execute it well, because they kicked off at 10:06. If I'm walking out of the press conference at 10:06, I'm a little frustrated because that means that the press conference got started very late.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, these guys are starting the game by the time they're usually finishing their post-match meal.
Yeah.
And they're still going out and doing everything really well.
Right. And I mean, going back to, I guess I didn't really know what to expect from Hartford too much, being last in the East. They've won 4 games all season. But we look good. I mean, we created a lot of chances. Kizza probably could have had like a freaking hat trick after coming on. But yeah, I mean, in the end, we, huge turning point for us when we now it's off the top, when we played Memphis. We 2-game losing streak where we let up 6 goals. We go into Memphis go up early against us, we end up winning the game 4-2, and then all of a sudden we get 2 shutouts in a row. We're top of the East, couple points clear. Let's look at the standings now. Thank you, Mike, for preparing this. Eastern Conference standing. Yep, we're at the top. 25 games played, 47 points, 3 wins in our last 3 games. Right behind us, Charleston, also on 25 games played. They are 4 points back from us, so we're kind of healthily clear from Charleston, as much as you could hope for a first and second kind of tight Eastern Conference. And then Tampa, right behind us, right behind Charleston in 3rd place. They have 2 games in hand on us. They've only played 23, but they're sitting on 41 points. So in theory, if they win their games in hand, then all of a sudden they're tied with us on 47 points. But we do have a game playing Tampa. So we have 9 games left this season. 6 of them are away, one of them being Tampa. Steve, we can talk about that a little bit once we take this graphic off the screen, but yeah, I mean, so this is kind of how the East is shaping up. After Tampa, you look at Memphis. Memphis and Louisville are both on 37, and then if you at fourth and fifth, if you go down to the kind of playoff cutoff, both Birmingham and Tulsa are on 30 points and 29 points respectively, and then Miami are just below the drop zone at 26 points, and Loudoun beneath them at 24. So, I mean, I don't know, Steve. This is about as good as we can hope for, I would imagine, with 9 games to go. We it looks like we hit a rough patch, 5 games ago or so. Mm-hmm. Turn that around pretty quickly, and all of a sudden it's full steam ahead going towards the run into the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I think, sure, I am going to take points on the board over games in hand every single time. And I'm going to take that more when I start looking at Tampa's schedule and see, before we play them again, it's not like they have necessarily the easiest schedule. Do I expect them to beat Tulsa on Friday? Probably. Next Saturday, they've got Miami. That's a in-state derby. Like, that's a game that's going to be a little tougher, I think. I think they win it, but it's not guaranteed. They still have to play Memphis. They have to play Louisville home and away.
Yeah.
And they have to play that away game, the last game of the season, right? Yeah. They've also got to play San Antonio, who is doing really, really well.
They also got to play us.
Right. So it's like, it's not that their schedule is super easy. And if I'm looking at it, in my mind, what other hard games do the Hounds have? I think the game we'll talk about on Wednesday. I think the away game to San Antonio is going to be a challenge. Maybe New Mexico, maybe not. They're not what they used to be, but every once in a while they can pull it out. I look at, we have 3 hard games. I look at them; they got 5 or 6 really hard games left.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. A lot of our, I think that the degree of difficulty for our schedule is that we have 6 away games in the last 9.
And in those 6 away games, we travel to 3 teams that are going to be very good teams.
Yes, but I would say the other group of teams are not great. Right. I mean, you have Tampa away, but then you have a handful of games against teams at the bottom of the East.
Right.
Which, comparatively, like, you ran through Tampa's schedule there. I don't know. I'd take our schedule over Tampa's, which is...
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've got Hartford, we've got Loudoun, Miami, New Mexico, Tulsa, and Detroit as the other teams, right? Like, yeah. I'm not intimidated by any of those.
Right. Speaking of games coming up, so here are our next 3 games. So midweek game in just 2 days' time, depending on when you're listening to this. We go away to Orange County, and then no game on the weekend.
That's really weird.
Yeah, it is weird. So we have a game on Wednesday, August 16th, and then another game on Wednesday, August 23rd. Going back, playing Hartford and playing in Hartford. And then we round out the stretch of away games for going to San Antonio on Saturday, August 26th. It doesn't look great. Hartford looks okay, obviously, but 3 away games, 2 of them you're traveling pretty decent distances. I always overweight that influence. I think probably a little too much, but I don't know. That's a factor when you're traveling across the country for a game. But let's focus on this game in 2 days' time. Steve, Orange County, they're 5th in the West. They look a decent side. I think earlier today, the numbers I remember is they've won 10 and lost 9. And then throw in some draws in there. But winning about as much as they're losing. I don't know how good they look at home. I don't know too much other than that, but I don't know, Steve. What are your thoughts on this midweek of this or Orange County?
I mean, from the little bit I've read, Orange County seems to be a team that is playing really well recently. Um, they're on a 4-game win streak, having beat San Diego away, New Mexico at home, Memphis in a 3-4 win away, Loudon in a 1-3 win away, and losing previously to that to Rio Grande Valley Toros 2-0 away. Um, so, I mean, they're winning on the road. That's a good sign for a team in the USL. They're a quality team. I think at this point they're figuring out how to make up for. I think where they're standing is a lot to do with. I don't understand everything that was going on, but there was a lot of turmoil, some issues early in the season with their front office and maybe coaching staff. I'd have to go back and read it. I just remember they were in rough shape, and that was present on the field.
Yeah.
Uh, and they've been a lot better since then. But
Well,
I don't think I care, right? And because I don't think I care about anybody anymore.
You're saying that in the context of how good we are, is what you're
Yes,
saying, right? Yeah,
exactly,
yeah.
right? It's like, sure, we play them, and then a week and a half later, we play San Antonio, who is second in the West. And then the second to last game, we play Tampa Bay. Okay, it's the Hounds' game to lose, not the other team's game to win.
Pretty confident. I like it.
This is a good team.
Yeah, no, it is a good team. It's a good team. Deco has found his form again. I think he looks good defensively. We've kind of turned it around. I'm with you on that. Before stepping away from the OC game, real quick, Mike has kindly laid out some more kind of bullet points to go over. So, and Steve, you might have already touched on a couple of these, but Orange County have played 2 less games than us, but have let in 11 more goals. Mike says we've somehow committed almost 100 more fouls than they have, but they have 20 more yellow cards than us this season. So, when they're going in, they're going in hard. Maybe is the takeaway from that. No former Hounds on this team. They did not play this past weekend, so they have a bit more of a rest than we do. Their last match was against San Diego, Steve, that you already mentioned, which they won 3-1, which you already also mentioned. I'll pull our next 3 games back up on the screen too. So just to reiterate, away at Orange County on Wednesday, away at Hartford a week later, and then away at San Antonio. I'm going to get a big batch of kind of predictions from you, Steve. How do you think these next 3 games go? I mean, you showed some confidence in saying, don't really care who we're playing as a good team. But I don't know. What do you think over these next 3 games?
Part of me wants to say 9 points.
Whoa.
I don't think that's what actually happens. I think it's possible. I think the Orange County game is the one that is the most likely to result in a draw at this point. And I could see it being a tense 0-0 or 1-1 affair. I think we go into San Antonio with something to prove that we're still wanting to be the best team in the league. After having a full week's rest, I think we'll see a lot of rotation, but still a 2-0 win in Hartford. And then a full strength. Bob is picking from 11 of his top 14 choices to field the lineup in San Antonio because of the rest in Hartford. And that goes a long way. Whereas I don't think he has that option for Orange County. I think that's the difference in those 2 games.
Yeah. So you're going 9 points?
I'm going with 7 points.
7 points? Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would be thrilled with 5. I think you're right. I mean, Hartford didn't. I understand the context around the game with the rain delay and everything, but Hartford bottom of these for a reason, and they kind of looked it in the game on the weekend. I would, as much as you can predict anything in sport, this looks like a pretty good win for the Hounds. And then I think if you're picking up 2 draws away at West Coast teams, I'm always happy with that. I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say always, but most of the time I'm happy with that. And I think that would still keep us pretty comfortably clear at the top of the. I don't, even if, even if Tampa go on a run, even if Charleston go on a run, I think if we pick up 5 points in the next 3 games, I don't really see them taking us, which I think is the position we would want to be in. 6 games left, one of them being Tampa with some games, on the books. So, I'm going 5 points, and I'd be thrilled with that. I guess. Go ahead.
And I guess the only thing I look at is I look back at the Hartford match page, and I look at who started this game on the bench that I expect to see starting on Wednesday. And you've got Luke Diasse, you've got Joe Farrell, you've got Junior Etu, you've got Kenny Forbes, you've got Tola Shawumi, right? Like 5 guys right there. And you still also got Eddie Kizza.
Yeah.
I don't expect to see him starting, but it's like you've got 5 guys that if you had told me those guys are not starting when they're available for the Hounds and healthy, what?
It's a good place to be in, yeah.
Right? Like,
do you think all of them come in? All those names that you just kind of went off?
The only one I wonder about is Etu. I mean, he played 45 minutes this weekend, but that's coming off of a pretty severe, I think it was a sprain. And so I wonder about his fitness. How long can he go? Is he going to be, after playing 45 minutes, is he going to be fit to play 70, 80, 90 minutes on Wednesday? I doubt it. Does he have a chance to start? I think so.
Yeah, he could start and then be first sub or something. Maybe.
But I'm also wondering is who does he start in place of? Because I think Kenny comes in where Rovi was.
Yeah.
And is Bob Lilley going to sacrifice Mark Ybarra or Danny Griffin at this point? Unless he thinks they really need the rest, I don't think he will.
Do you think Ybarra is that central lately? Look, I
think Mark Ybarra is that important to the Riverhounds? No. Do I think Bob Lilley thinks that? Without a doubt, yeah. Bob Lilley, like if I've ever seen Bob Lilley like talk about a player in a way that I'm just like, what are you seeing that I'm not? It's Mark Ybarra.
I think Ybarra has come on leaps and bounds in this season.
Oh, he has, but I still don't think he is the guy that should be always starting.
But
over
Steve, didn't you see his hair? Come on, it looks great.
I'm not a fan.
But yeah,
but I think I said this after, because I think I was on the podcast afterwards, that apparently Trevor's wetsuit was the one that dyed his hair that color, and I don't know who made the choice, whether that was Mark's decision or Trevor's decision. But hey, you know what? I love it. I love that that's the dynamic, that
back yourself,
that these guys are hanging out, dyeing each other's hair.
Yeah,
midweek.
Right on. No, I totally.
If that's not camaraderie, what is?
Yeah, for sure. No, I think Ybarra probably is the one that if Etu comes in for anyone, I think it is probably Ybarra, just because, I mean, Griffin is the biggest, engine marathon runner that we have. And, if there is probably anyone who Lilley trusts more than Ybarra, it's probably Griffin. So,
Kev, we've been talking for like 53 minutes. We should wrap this up.
Yes, I agree. Yes, pick them. Before we go, I have to throw this up. I didn't even know this. Mike is apparently ahead. I am suspicious of that, but right now Mike leads the leaderboard with 24.
Yeah, the guy that does the graphics is all of a sudden way ahead.
Suspicious. But Mike can't win it because he's part of the Mongols crew. So Michael Finn is currently leading the non-Mongols crew and is eligible to win the entire competition. Michael Finn's sitting on 23 points. Laura Ellen's next with 22. Keaton Liebengood is at 21 points. I'm sitting at 20. And Devin Pale is sitting at 18 points. So 9 games left. Still got space. Still got time to catch up.
Can you throw Mike's comment up there?
Oh, I just saw. Mike says, "Don't be suspicious. I'm better than you." Well, Mike,
I want to qualify that. Okay, Mike, you can make that claim about Kevin because he is one of the Monday night people, and I just rotate in. I just don't actually remember to fill it out on YouTube on the nights that I'm not on the podcast. So my chances to get it right are much more limited.
And we haven't recorded the past couple of times, and I forgot to put it in. So Mike, I think you're getting away with something here. All right, so that's it. But we're to kind of wrap this up. We have, I've repeated it now a couple of times. To me, no, we are definitely now in the run-in. We have 9 games left before a playoff scenario. I think all of us at this stage, I think we've been the best team in the East over the course of the season. It would be a bit of a tragedy if we don't finish first in the East and kind of prove it. So it's a big 9 games. We'll see what the Hounds are made of. I think, we're coming in fairly healthy, not a ton of injuries. And it all starts midweek against Orange County. So
I'm trying to remember. Did you give a specific score prediction for Orange County?
No. Let's say I'm gonna say. Oh man, I don't like this.
You said 5 points out of a possible 9.
Yes, and I'm comfortable with that. But now it's picking the draw. I think it's going to be a draw. I'm bouncing between 0-0 and 1-1.
So I'm going with 1-1 for the record.
Yeah, I think that's probably it's probably going to be the most popular draw score. So I'll try to buck the trend a little bit here and go 0-0.
Okay.
And then we should have a podcast in between now and then but I mean, Steve, because you forget, you can get in your prediction now if you want.
Oh, no. No, the nights that I'm on the podcast, I put it in the Mongol Slack channel.
Oh, nice.
So that Mike has all of the ones that's what we did. So he doesn't have to go back and listen and figure it out.
Perfect. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, Steve. Well, Thanks for coming on. Thanks for dealing with my hosting capabilities. It was fun.
The Kevin Steve show is a great time.
Good show. Out of all of the spin-off shows, the Kev Steve show, it's definitely the most popular.
It's only because we record on Monday nights. People log on and they see us and they're like, crap, it's these 2 jerks.
But and it comes down to I don't know outros. All right, go over to bgn.fm. Sincerely, there's a lot of really good writing and stuff happening at bgn.fm. I'm kind of amazed at the growth that place has had and all the contributions and people writing about soccer in the U.S. Watch the Women's World Cup, follow the Hounds, and next week
on some other social media places, wherever stuff. I don't know.
Exit, tweet it, whatever. YouTube it. So let's wrap this up. We'll catch everyone next week. Thanks everybody. We'll talk to you very, very soon.